he wanted to build a car, as he said, to kick their ass on the street, too. So this is Carroll Shelby's answer to Ferrari. There were rumors it was painted Ferrari red, that was his sort of to Ferrari.
For years, car enthusiasts believed one of Carroll Shelby's most mysterious Mustangs had disappeared forever. Most assumed it had been crushed, erased from history, with no chance of ever being seen again. But everything changed when a team chasing what seemed like a false lead stumbled on to the correct VIN number. That single discovery led them to a quiet corner of Texas where a faded red coupe had been hiding in plain sight for decades. What they uncovered was far more than a rare classic. It was a Shelby creation that many experts believed could never have survived. Its unexpected reappearance shocked collectors, historians, and Mustang fans alike, forcing them to rethink what they thought they knew about Shelby's most secretive projects and the experimental cars he built behind the scenes. Before Carroll Shelby became one of the biggest names in American performance cars, he was just a determined racer from Texas with a weak heart and an even stronger will. He did not come from a big engineering company or a wealthy background. He grew up with hard work, natural talent, and a deep love for speed. To Shelby, cars were never just machines. He believed they had to be pushed to their limits, improved, broken, and rebuilt until they performed exactly as he wanted. In 1959, Shelby reached the dream of almost every racing driver when he won the famous 24 Hours of Le Mans with Aston Martin alongside Roy Salvadori. But while his career was reaching its highest point, his health was falling apart. A serious heart condition forced him to stop racing. For many people, that would have been the end of the journey. For Carroll Shelby, it was only the beginning of a much bigger legacy. Instead of driving race cars, Shelby decided to build them. He believed America could challenge Europe's finest sports cars with the right combination of ideas. Looking at the lightweight British AC Ace, he imagined what would happen if it carried a powerful American V8. That vision became the legendary Shelby Cobra. It was loud, aggressive, and incredibly fast. Shelby's greatest talent was keeping things simple. Combine European handling with American horsepower, remove everything unnecessary, and create a machine that could scare the competition. Ford finds the perfect partner. By the mid-1960s, Ford needed someone exactly like Carroll Shelby. Ferrari was dominating endurance racing, and Henry Ford II wanted to end that streak at any cost. Ford had already created the GT40, but the project still lacked the racing experience needed to win. When Shelby American took charge, everything changed. Under Shelby's leadership, the GT40 transformed from a promising race car into one of the greatest racing machines ever built. The results were unforgettable. Ford defeated Ferrari at Le Mans in 1966 and continued winning in 1967, 1968, and 1969. Those victories turned Shelby into far more than a car builder. He became the man manufacturers trusted whenever they needed real speed instead of empty promises. Around the same time, Ford wanted the Mustang to earn respect as a true performance car. While Lee Iacocca saw its business potential, Shelby saw its racing potential. His answer was the GT350 in 1965, followed by the GT750 in 1967. These were not ordinary Mustangs with a few upgrades. Shelby gave them power, personality, and an attitude that made them stand out from everything else on the road. Why Shelby's prototype cars are so important. Although the Cobra, GT40, GT350, and GT550 became world famous, Shelby's most fascinating creations were often the ones the public never saw. Behind every successful performance car were countless prototypes, test vehicles, experimental parts, and engineering ideas that never reached production. Back in the 1960s, prototype cars were viewed as tools, not collectibles. They tested new engines, suspension systems, brakes, body designs, and styling changes. Once their job was finished, many were sold quietly, taken apart, or crushed. Nobody imagined they would one day become priceless pieces of automotive history. The goal was simply to meet deadlines, improve performance, and prepare the next production model. That is exactly why the story of Little Red became so fascinating. For decades, almost everyone believed the car had been destroyed. It was never displayed in a museum, locked inside a private collection, or hidden in a secret garage. The truth was far more surprising. A forgotten Mustang sat unnoticed for decades because everyone was searching for the wrong car. Little Red was a 1967 Shelby GT500 EXP prototype, but it looked nothing like the Shelby Mustangs most people know. Instead of the famous fastback body, it was built as a notchback coupe, making it one of the rarest Shelby models ever created. Along with the legendary Green Hornet, it was one of only 2 Shelby notchback prototypes ever built. Its rarity was only part of the story. Little Red served as a rolling test car where Ford and Shelby American experimented with new performance ideas, fresh styling, big block power, superchargers, and design features that later inspired the California Special Mustang. It was never meant for production. Instead, it was built to answer one question: how far could Shelby push the Mustang? That's exactly why its disappearance became such a mystery. Car collectors knew Little Red had existed. Old photos, factory records, and stories all proved it was real, but the car itself had completely vanished. For years, many believed the simplest explanation, that Ford or Shelby had crushed it after testing, just like many other prototype cars. If that had been true, the story would have ended there. But in the world of classic cars, missing doesn't always mean destroyed. Green Hornet changed everything. The hunt for Little Red became serious because another famous prototype had already survived. Craig Jackson, chairman and CEO of Barrett Jackson, owned the 1968 Shelby GT500 prototype, known as the Green Hornet. Like Little Red, it was a rare notchback Shelby built to test advanced technology, including electronic fuel injection, 4-wheel disc brakes, and an independent rear suspension. Many of those ideas were years ahead of their time. While restoring Green Hornet, Craig and restoration expert Jason Billups kept asking the same question. If one experimental Shelby survived, could the other one still be out there? Most experts doubted it. They believed Little Red had been crushed, wrecked, or lost forever. Billups thought differently. Instead of searching for another hidden garage, he focused on something much more powerful: old records. For years, everyone searched using the Shelby serial number, and every search ended the same way: nothing. Then, the team realized something everyone else had missed. Little Red had 2 identities. It carried a Shelby serial number, but underneath that was its original Ford VIN. That small detail changed everything. Once they stopped following the Shelby records and traced the original Ford VIN instead, the dead end suddenly became a new path. The VIN uncovered decades of registrations, ownership records, and paperwork that eventually pointed toward rural Texas. The real mystery was never that the car was hidden. It was that everyone had been searching for the wrong name. In the car collector world, a badge may tell the story, but the VIN reveals the truth. Little Red had spent decades lost between those 2 identities.
Found after half a century. On March 3, 2018, the search finally ended. The team discovered Little Red in rural North Texas. It was not shining inside a showroom. It was worn out, incomplete, and surrounded by other forgotten cars. The engine and transmission were missing. Several body panels had been removed. To almost anyone else, it looked like another abandoned Mustang shell. But to the people who understood the VIN and knew the history, they had just uncovered one of the greatest Shelby discoveries ever made. The Texas field that saved a legend. The story sounds almost unbelievable. A prototype Shelby that many believed had been destroyed nearly 50 years earlier had quietly survived in Texas. Its survival was not the result of careful preservation. It survived through neglect, changing owners, storage, and simple misunderstanding. Many people who owned the car never realized what they had. Prototype vehicles are especially vulnerable because they rarely receive the protection that production models enjoy. If no one knows their true identity, they can easily be stripped for parts, abandoned, or scrapped. Little Red escaped that fate simply because nobody destroyed it at the wrong time. After experts Craig Jackson, Jason Billups, and Mustang historian Kevin Marty authenticated the car, the rumors finally became history. This was not just another old Mustang, it was the long-lost Shelby GT500 XPT prototype that many believed no longer existed. Why Little Red matters. Little Red was never supposed to survive. Prototype cars are usually discarded after testing. Companies often destroy them to protect experimental designs, remove outdated technology, avoid legal issues, or simply free up space. Back in the 1960s, nobody imagined that an unusual Shelby notchback would one day become one of the most important Mustangs ever built. Ford and Shelby created Little Red to test ideas, not to preserve history. Once its job was finished, it should have disappeared forever. Instead, it survived. That is what makes Little Red so valuable today. Production cars show what manufacturers decided to sell. Prototype cars reveal the bold ideas they were willing to try before making compromises. Little Red is more than a rare Shelby. It is a snapshot of Shelby Americans' imagination, a piece of Mustang history that was almost erased forever. The hidden technology inside Shelby's experiments. Little Red and the Green Hornet were more than just rare prototype Mustangs. They were rolling test labs packed with ideas years ahead of their time. The Green Hornet introduced groundbreaking features like independent rear suspension, four-wheel disc brakes, and electronic fuel injection. Little Red focused on supercharging, big block power, and bold styling concepts that pushed the Mustang into new territory. These were not minor upgrades. Shelby and Ford were experimenting with technology that regular production cars simply weren't ready for. That's what made Shelby's prototypes so important. They weren't just faster than other Mustangs, they were ahead of their era. They carried ideas long before factories, budgets, and company executives were willing to approve them. Years later, when modern Mustangs finally adopted features like independent rear suspension, people realized those ideas had already been explored decades earlier. Suddenly, Little Red and the Green Hornet no longer looked like forgotten experiments. They looked like blueprints for the future. Finding Little Red did more than excite collectors. It rewrote automotive history by proving that Shelby and Ford were developing advanced performance technology long before most people believed. Carroll Shelby was never satisfied with following the market. He wanted to force it to move faster. the connection to the California Special. Little Red's influence didn't disappear when the prototype vanished. Many of its styling ideas found their way into the 1968 Mustang California Special, giving everyday buyers a taste of Shelby-inspired design. Even though the original prototype seemed lost forever, part of its identity was already living on in a production Mustang. That's often how prototypes shape history. Sometimes the entire car never reaches production, but its best ideas survive. A body line, a trim package, a performance upgrade, or a design feature finds its way into another vehicle. For decades, Mustang fans admired elements inspired by Little Red without realizing where they came from. When the prototype was finally found, it was like discovering the missing first chapter of a famous story. The design journey suddenly made sense, and the connection between Shelby's workshop and the California Special became impossible to ignore. Carroll Shelby's greatest secret. Movies often imagine Shelby hiding one last incredible Mustang in a locked garage. The truth is even more fascinating. Shelby's real secret was the environment he created. He encouraged experimentation, ignored limits when necessary, and constantly challenged Ford to build something better. He relied on Ford's money, engines, and production capability, while Ford relied on Shelby's racing instincts and fearless creativity. That partnership produced some of the greatest performance cars ever built, but it also created constant tension. Ford wanted dependable production vehicles. Shelby wanted cars that shocked people. Little Red and the Green Hornet existed because both sides were willing to test just how far the Mustang could be pushed before reaching the limits of practicality. That was Shelby's true hidden garage. It wasn't a building hidden from the public. It was a mindset where bold ideas were tested long before they became acceptable. Little Red stands today as proof that many of Shelby's greatest achievements happened long before the brochures, dealerships, and magazine covers ever appeared. The challenge of restoring Little Red. Once Little Red was finally located, another difficult question emerged. Should it remain exactly as it was found, or should it be restored? Some collectors believed every scratch, every rust spot, and every missing part told an important piece of its history. Restoring too much could erase the evidence of everything the car had survived. Others believed Shelby built cars to be driven, not displayed as forgotten relics. To truly honor his vision, they argued, the car needed to run again, letting future generations experience what made it special. Craig Jackson and his restoration team chose a careful middle ground. They restored Little Red while documenting every step of the process. It was not an ordinary restoration because this was never an ordinary Mustang. As a one-of-a-kind prototype, there was no factory blueprint to follow. The team had to decide which stage of the car's remarkable life they wanted to preserve. Restoring Little Red meant bringing history back without rewriting it. The moment Little Red returned to the public. In January 2020, Little Red finally returned to the public stage at the Barrett-Jackson auction in Scottsdale, Arizona. For the first time ever, both legendary Shelby prototypes, the Green Hornet and Little Red, stood together, fully restored. The car that many believed had been destroyed suddenly was real, complete, and sitting in front of thousands of people. Its return transformed the story surrounding Shelby's experimental Mustangs. It proved that even long-accepted history can be wrong. The discovery was not the result of simple luck. Researchers followed forgotten records, old documents, VIN numbers, expert opinions, and years of overlooked clues before finally solving the mystery. That's what separates Little Red from a typical barn find. Most barn finds uncover forgotten cars. Little Red corrected decades of mistaken history. Why Little Red still matters. Collectors treasure Little Red because it combines everything that makes a legendary automobile. It is incredibly rare. It influenced future Mustang designs. It introduced ideas far ahead of its time. It was believed destroyed, and after decades of failed searches, it